Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on the demand-supply situation of oil meals and future outlook, brought to you by the Solvent Extractors Association of India and GLOBOIL.
To give a flavor of soya, which is a very important ingredient as far as the poultry feed and all other feeds is concerned, we have the doyen of soya industry, Davish Jain, Chairman SOPA and Chairman Prestige Group, to share his thoughts. Over to Davish Jain.
Namaskar and a very good afternoon to all the esteemed panelists, our respected senior government officials, and friends from our trade industry, and all respected members attending this webinar. Thank you, Atul Bhai, for inviting me to this important session, when the entire oil meal, I would say, sector is looking for a new vision and direction after the damage caused by several elements culminating into COVID-19. Or say soybean meal and rapeseed meal, which are the biggest contributor to the oil meal exports, are subject of my deliberation, where I would primarily deal with soybean meal for in the next few minutes. One important factor was that, number one, most of our products, as we know, is going for use by poultry and aquaculture, and now a good amount of it start being used for human food applications. Most Western world nations who are the large producers, particularly Argentina, Brazil, and USA, have large surpluses for the exports to non-soya producing countries around the world. One major factor, important factor, I would say, which we should keep in mind, is the GM soybean versus non-GM variety of the crop. We believe that although the yields is said to be higher in GMOs, the natural purity derived and the quality, bioavailability of the protein in case of non-GMO variety is where we have our own niche. Major producing countries do produce primarily the genetically modified soybeans, which are certainly more price competitive. So let me give a little historical perspective to the subject of soy meal exports. We exported close to 44 lakh tons of soybean meal and other soya value-added products in the year 2013. That was valued over rupees 15,000 crores. And this was our peak, I would say, in our history. But things started changing fast, and in just 3 years down the line, our exports fell to just about 4 lakh tons, and that was only valued at 1,500 crores, which was merely 10% of our peak exports. So between 2013-14 and 2014-15, we had two consecutive bad crops due to inclement weather conditions, primarily hit by excessive rains in 1 year and another year due to drought, which resulted in such a drastic fall in our exports. So ever increasing soybean prices led by the government mandated MSP in India, which rendered us uncompetitive. There were some quality issues on account of unscrupulous practices and inconsistency of supplies, which also hindered our regular exports. We did gain on exports in subsequent years, and I would say with the help coming from the government, particularly Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and innovative marketing efforts undertaken by SOPA while I was the chairman, and took export marketing missions to the key overseas markets for regaining our lost ground. In the current year, however, we have had a double whammy, hit by a poor crop on account of excess rainfall and a host of other compounding factors, including COVID-19. As per SOPA's estimates, the country's soybean production during October 2019 to April 2020 declined. Soybean production declined to 35.8 lakh tons against 51.84 lakh tons during the same period last year. Now, coming to the soybean exports, during the same period, that is October 2019 through April 2020, there was a sharp decline of exports, and it was merely 3.89 lakh tons compared to 17.64 lakh tons in the previous year of the same period. The global picture is that the world production of soybean is at a high level of 365 million tons, and that of soybean meal is about 245 million tons, and that has been going up. As we all know, about 80% comes from the three major producing countries, Brazil, USA, and Argentina, while Argentinian soybean meal holds the lion market share in exports. So when we see ourselves, we are merely 3% of the world production. So we are a small player in that way. So let me dive deep into the challenges faced by India on export front of soybean meal. So with what I mentioned, higher raw material prices as compared to the competition due to a host of reasons. The soybean prices is essentially driven by increasing MSP, fixed most of the time on political considerations, while on the other hand, in the last 3 years, we have seen international prices kept on declining because of production surging from a level of, in 5 years, from 265 to 365 million tons. So that is the major growth in the production worldwide, which caused prices to slide internationally. Practices in the market of futures trading, I would say, on NCDEX has made life of genuine producers and processors very difficult. Players in the market with lesser stake have speculated the price beyond the range of competitiveness. In the peak season this year, speculative prices literally drove us out of the business. High cost of logistics, such as inland freight costs to the ports and various domestic destinations, the high port charges. The biggest soybean producing state, which is Madhya Pradesh, and also having the largest crushing capacity, is about 800 kilometers from the ports on the western coast, which calls for, I would say, considering some inland freight subsidies and port charges to be subsidized for exports, because this is an item of derived from agriculture. High financing charges and unreasonably high burden coupled with cheaper edible oil imports. When we say cheaper, the world prices have sharply declined in past 3 years, and the import tariffs, which are lower than the WTO bound rates, which all makes our oil meals, which are the other product after crushing, becoming more costly to us. So to keep ourselves, I would like to take a cue from the pulses industry. You see, when there was a shortage. We had huge imports coming into the country. The prices in the process surged to a very high level, and within a year and two, not only that, the high prices incentivized the farmers to move to pulses cultivation. They made us near self-sufficient water for our needs, going our own production to in excess of 20 million tons. So that shows that the crop diversification is possible through those incentives which are available, to the farmers. When we have better production, and if the government can, I would also come to that point how we can deal with that matter. We have uh, what we need is basically to change how we can move towards self-sufficiency in edible oils, for which I think the government is now I'm giving all special attention. What then, my friends, is the way forward? I'm sure you will agree that there are two factors that will win us into the export market. Is one is the competitive pricing, and secondly, uh, consistent availability of the quality product. So in this respect, I propose the following steps should be taken rather. The farmers should be encouraged to grow more soybean under income-driven MSP, and the government should incentivize the farmers either by a scheme called Bhavantar, which was very successfully introduced in Madhya Pradesh, or by the yield per hectare kind of a subsidy. This is possible by increasing our per hectare yields from the current low of 1 ton per hectare to at least 1.6 tons per hectare. And the first immediate target should be placed to go up to 2 tons per hectare of productivity. So there is a national mission in edible oil, and that I would stop. So now, what I would suggest that the government must make all our export activity free of all taxes and levies, which we have to pay high mandi fee currently, and some other VAT on some of the GST inputs and consumables, which we are not qualified for ITC. Secondly, the MEI's benefit, which used to be about up to a year before, was available for at 10%, which was subsequently reduced to 7%. Now, currently, being given only at 5% up to I think December 2020. So this our appeal to the government would be to reconsider it, to make it at least 10%, to keep us having our competitive edge in the market, although we are still priced higher. But rather than, I would say, to compete on the bulk markets, which are large consumers, we must search for our niche markets who can pay us premium for our non-GMO soybean meal and other soya value-added products, especially in the light of COVID-19 pandemic, where people would prefer consumption of non-genetically modified
2 minutes.
secure products uh, at all stages of the food chain. Production acreages needs to be enhanced with earnest efforts to achieve higher per hectare yields. We have to jointly make concerted efforts, I would say, to win in the lost markets. In the joint effort, we need the help of the farmer, the government, the processor community, the thrust on Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So, in my opinion, the government should lay the thrust towards making India self-sufficient in edible oils, but it can be achieved only through higher indigenous acreage coupled with higher productivity in the oilseed sector. We must work together towards the national food and nutritional security through the edible oils and protein supply without compromising self-reliance. And finally, I would like to inform you that I have been in conversation with the honorable policymakers on behalf of SOPA and have already made several representations as recently as the last fortnight. I hope we can together make soya meal exports of India with our USP to earn a sizable foreign exchange earner for our country. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, Davish
Yeah.
Bhai, for those wonderful words. And I'm sure whatever
Atulji, I would like to add something.
Yeah, boliye.
See, yesterday SCA compiled the data for exports of oil meal. This year for 1920, the export is down by about 27%. In fact, the soybean meal, the last year was the export just 6,82,000 ton only compared to 30 lakhs last year. Rapeseed was last year was 10.9. This year is a 9.61, so not much gone down. And of course, the total export during the oil financial year 2019-20, the total export is a 20.1 million ton compared to last year 33 lakh tons. Sorry, that 33 lakh tons. And value-wise, look at this year we are on about 4,400 crores, which was last year was 6,400 crores. So both in terms of the quantity, we are down by 27%. We are down by 31%. This is just for info of the audience. Thank you. Go ahead, please, sir.
Just to add one thing, in last after this dip to a lowest of 3.89 lakh tons in the year 15-16 crop year, we went with our export promotion efforts and revived this markets to achieve in 3 years 60 lakh tons of exports and about 18 lakhs, 20 lakhs and 21.5 lakh tons. So put together about 60 lakh tons in 3 years, which was, I would just, there's a good recovery for a commodity or a product which stayed in the international market for that long. Because 2 years we were, almost away from international markets because of the bad crop in India, which I mentioned. So this could certainly actually be revived. As a matter of fact, exports can only give us, I would say, stability in the market and give a balance, so that we can, have better pricing both for domestic and export needs. Otherwise, we find that there is not enough of offtake for whatever we are producing. So exports are an essential leg for us, and that needs to be, in any way encouraged and I would say to be sustained. Thank you.
Thank you, Davish Bhai, for those wonderful words. But let me tell you, with the high MSP, as you rightly pointed out, exports can only happen with massive infusion of incentives. Without high incentives and with the world awash in meal and in beans, exporting soybean meal will always remain a challenge because India is a high-cost country.
Davish Bhai, the future price outlook for soya meal and other oil meals, and particularly when export is down, how do we cope up with the extra production or extra surplus of the soybean meal in domestic market?
We have a very, I think, sizable residual stock of soybean available with us at this time. What we have actually estimated that 1st of May, stocks for the current crop year could be somewhere around 4 million tons. And that translates into about 3 million tons of meal. I'm sorry, more than 3. About 3 to 3.2 million tons. So that is a sizable available stock. As a matter of fact, if the exports remain scanty as we have seen so far, then I think there is very, clear availability, for the domestic needs. Although our soybean crushing has been aligned to actual offtake, the demand which is there from the poultry industry and from the agriculture and from the food industry. So all put together, I personally feel that we cannot see any run on the prices really. At this time, the prices should remain at a level at least not more than what is being offered currently. Rather, it may with the onset of the after the swings commence, the prices can start sliding a bit, and you can see some kind of
Okay.
reversal in the price of 5% or